Yeah, it's mindset cafe, we all about that mindset. Gotta stay focused, never settle for less. It's all in your head, how you think you manifest. So get ready to rise, cause we about to be the best. Gotta switch it up, gotta break the old habits. Get your mind right, turn your dreams into habits. No negative vibes, only positive.
What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Mindset Cafe podcast. It's your boy Devin, and today we are joined by the guest that I am excited to introduce. He is Jon Ostenson. He is going to be in the top 1% of national franchise brokers. He is an investor, an author, and an international speaker, really specializing in the area that he's coined to be as the non-food franchising, right? And you already know, besides the Mindset Cafe, how we have Strive 11 going on. So this is going to be a really interesting episode to really dig in and dive into Jon's mindset and see what he has going on and his feelings about franchises. So Jon, thanks so much for taking the time to, hop on the Mindset Cafe.
Absolutely. Excited to be here, Devin. Looking forward to a great conversation.
Well, let's dive in a little bit. How did you get started in the franchise space?
Stumbled into it. So, like so many of your listeners, I spent many years in the corporate world, and then just about 8 or 9 years ago, had the opportunity to step away from a large public company and do something a little more entrepreneurial. And what that was serving as president of Shelf Genie franchise system. So custom pull-out shelving for your kitchens and pantries. And during that experience of supporting franchisees across North America, I really fell in love with the franchise model. I just saw how it was applicable for so many different backgrounds to be able to step into business ownership and just the ways that we supported them to be successful. And, from there, partnered with the founder of Shelf Genie. We spun off, both alongside him as well as on my own. I've invested in franchises on the franchisee side. So I've been on both sides of the table now and, get to spend most of my time helping others around the country step into business ownership and explore the top opportunities in their markets.
No, that's awesome. So, well, let's dive in a little bit on that, right? So you got paired in with the Shelf Genie, and now you've been in the franchise broker space. You've been a franchisee. What led you to even step into partnering up with the Shelf Genie founder? Like, what's your background? What were you doing beforehand?
Yeah. So, my background had been climbing the corporate ladder, had spent, years. I worked in India for a period of time. I worked for Carter's, Oshkosh B'gosh for many years, big public company, went to grad school, got the MBA and, checked all those types of boxes and could have kept doing it forever, but really had that inner desire that so many people have to do something a little more entrepreneurial. And I didn't know what that looked like. And so I started networking with different, private equity firms and others in the market, just trying to figure out where's my niche. If I step away from a big company, where's that smaller company? And, but always had that desire to do something on my own. And so love that, with Framebridge Consulting, we built it into an Inc. 5000 business, something I'm very proud of. And that's just a testimony to how many people we've been able to help. But franchising was not on my radar. When I thought franchise, I thought of fast food, I thought of hotels. And, that experience with Shelf Genie really opened up my eyes to this world of opportunities in so many different industries outside of fast food.
No, that's so awesome. So I do have to ask, how was living in India? How was that whole experience?
Loved it. So we were there for 6 months and, again, with a large public company, we're over there kind of bringing stuff up. But for me, I really got exposed to the other side of outsourcing. I saw how it was helping impact communities and just that, it was really neat to see the other side of the coin because at the time, outsourcing was a really hot topic here in the U.S. I saw how we cut costs, saved jobs here in the U.S., but then also created these great jobs overseas. So it gave me more perspective and the people were just amazing. So had a great experience. I've not been back to spring break though. I'm trying to talk the family into it, but haven't succeeded yet.
That's awesome. And was it a huge culture shock when you first, moved there, from just the culture, the food, the way of living?
Yeah, I was 2 years out of college, 2 years out of the University of Georgia. And all of a sudden I wake up and find myself in country on the other side of the world. And, but again, the people were amazing. Now there are a lot of people everywhere, right? It's a crowded country, but they just treated us so well. And, really to see international business, at work beyond the classroom was eye-opening. And I candidly didn't know how long I was going to be over there when I said yes. So could have been longer, could have been shorter, but I said, hey, let's go for an adventure.
No, that's awesome. So, diving into your personal side a little bit before we dive into the franchise side, right? You said you're married and you have kids, right?
Yeah.
So at what point, did you and your wife get married? Was it when you already were working for Shelf Genie? Did you meet her in India? Did you meet her when you were a franchisee?
Yeah, no, met my wife through on a blind date, through a mutual friend. So got out of college and, dated around a good bit. And, finally around age 27, 28, said, all right, God, I'm going to take a break here. Just bring me the right one when it's time. And, the phone rang 2 weeks later and rest is history. So, definitely married out of my league. We've been married 16 years now. So that dates me. I'm mid 40s. And kids 13, 9, and 6, and coach their teams and volunteer with them in the community. Just feel very blessed.
No, that's so awesome. And the reason I asked that because as an entrepreneur, right, it's not easy dating, let alone marrying us, right? I have a wife and, we've been married 4 years. We have a 2-year-old daughter about to be 3. And even my business partner, right, he just got married and I ordained his wedding. And it's one of those things where we know that our significant others, our wives, our better halves, they have a lot of work on their plate or have to deal with, us who are not the easiest to deal with at times. Right. So my next question is, how has that relationship been, or what was your guys' like dynamic? Because there are highs, there are lows, but at the same time, it's a whole thing. You can't just work, 16 hours a day and then never see your family. So you have to kind of create your own balance of life, and your significant other, has to kind of be okay with that. So there's conversations, there's, struggles and all that kind of stuff. So how has your family dynamic, been from start until now?
Yeah, for many years I had a long commute and I traveled a lot, when I was in the corporate world. I think, when we started having kids, that was a challenge. And, I give her a ton of credit for hanging in there. Fortunately now I travel when I want to, and, I still pinch myself that the worldwide headquarters for Framebridge is in my backyard. I've got a detached garage with a beautiful office above that. And so I've got pretty much no commute, and it allows me just a lot more flexibility to be present. Now, the challenge we have is, we're always on at the same time, right? And she'll catch me at times and be like, hey, honey, put the phone down. Hey, tune into what's going on here in the present. Because I tend to live in the future as well. But no, she's just outstanding and puts up with me. And we've been very blessed that we come from similar families, similar family dynamics. So we've had a little less drama than we, from our backgrounds. And so we're both pretty even keel and give and take. And we get away on one-on-one trips and, do all the things you're supposed to do. And, I'm a member of EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, which you're probably familiar with, Devin. And, just being around other like-minded individuals, in community has really been helpful for me. And, we strive to make each other better, not just in business, but, whether it be relationally, financially, spiritually, mentally, all those different domains in life that matter.
No, I think that is so important, right? Being around like-minded individuals is so under talked about, right? Especially in the entrepreneur space. When people become an entrepreneur, right, you think you have to do it yourself. You have to figure out, and cross every bridge by yourself. And that's honestly not really the case. When you surround yourself with like-minded individuals, one, it makes the journey more fun, but two, you can solve problems a lot faster, condense your timeline of success. And then the other thing is, like, you have to realize you're not alone. Right. And so when you start to surround yourself with like-minded people, you get this feeling of, oh, wow, I'm not crazy. Right. So I think that's so awesome that you are part of that. We're a part of one as well. And that's one of the things with our franchise we really try to, continue to do. And the whole purpose of it isn't just here's a blueprint, good luck, high five. It's like we're trying to create a franchise and a mastermind all kind of tied into one, because I personally have seen how important it is to really network with other people like you. Right.
Yeah. And I love what you're doing. I always say that's an oftentimes overlooked area of franchising, is that community that you have. Here are other people that are literally running the same business you are day in, day out in their markets. And you have every incentive for them to do better. So you're trying to help each other exchange best practices and learning so that you can kind of shortcut success, right? And a lot of our best ideas when I was on the franchisor side came from our franchisees trying new things. And then once it worked for them, then others would adopt it as well. So love that you're taking that approach to, culture and, mind share, and, you become like those you hang out with the most, right? So love what you're building.
No, that's it. That's exactly right. And I thank you for that. So let's dive in a little bit to, what you got going on now, right? There's a mindset to being an entrepreneur, right? And I'll start by saying that I don't think everyone, right, is right to be an entrepreneur, right? And it's not, and that's okay, right? It's not meant for everyone, right? Just like I wasn't meant to be a doctor, right? It's the same kind of thing. It's a struggle, and you got to be willing to go through that struggle, those highs and lows. But in the same thing, and a step further, right? Franchising isn't right for everyone, just like running your own business isn't right for everyone. Would you agree on that, or would you, how do you feel about that statement?
I agree often. And I think a good illustration there is oftentimes existing business owners approach us and say, hey, we're interested in franchising. What I found is a lot of those existing business owners are too entrepreneurial. They want to put their thumbprints all over the business. They think they're the smartest guy in the room. Franchising is not going to be a good fit. But I find so many existing business owners that say, hey, I remember everything that I had to go through the hard way on my own first time around. I love the idea of essentially starting on third base, where a lot of things have been proven out and the product market fit there is there, and the tech stack and the systems and the community and franchise are on the sideline. They love that idea. So what I found is they either appreciate it or they're not a good fit. And I think the same goes for those that even don't have a business yet. Is, again, sometimes if you're not willing to humble yourself and follow someone else's process, franchising is probably not right for you. But if you've got a vision to build potentially an empire down the line of multiple concepts and businesses and build a large organization, franchising can really be a good path.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that people don't really realize that also. It's like, just because you franchise, right, doesn't mean you're stuck with one industry or one business, right? You can open one of this, one of that, and create a portfolio essentially without having to do all the legwork like myself and my business partner have had to do and continue to do, right? But that's what drives us and fuels us, right? So there's different aspects. So you just have to really know what you want out of life, what you want to create, right? Do you want to be the person that is solving all the problems, or do you just want to have a business that runs and a lot of the obstacles and have answers to a lot of the obstacles that you wouldn't have if you didn't join a franchise system? Yeah. So how was your experience? You got into working with a franchisor, then you became a franchisee, and then you started launching FranBridge Consulting. How was that evolution kind of been, and why did you end up taking the franchise broker route?
Yeah, I think the older you get, it's neat when you start recognizing what you're good at and what you enjoy doing, and in turn what you don't enjoy doing as much. I enjoy teaching, consulting, coaching, introducing people to ideas, and a lot of those just align really well with what I do in the franchise consulting practice. I'd say leading large teams and organizations, I've done that. I can do it. It's probably not my strength, and it's not what I enjoy doing. There are pros and cons to everything. There are trade-offs. Working for yourself, yeah, it's great. You have freedom, flexibility. At the same time, I'm the hardest boss I've ever had, right? So, there is a trade-off, but I think that's really been a realization for me in recent years is, how do I want to spend my day, and what are those activities I feel I can do well and, be able to help others. That's what it comes down to. So that's really evolved into what I do, and I kind of put my own spin on it versus others that do what I do out there in the market. But love helping, love introducing ideas. I wrote a book called Non-Food Franchising, which I'm happy to share a digital copy with all of your listeners. Just come out to our website. But just kind of that thought leadership side of it, of things that I've learned, things I've observed, and sharing those with others is probably more of my strength than dealing with a large team day in, day out. I know so many folks that are so good at that. But I found myself, when I led an organization of 40 people, found myself beating my head against the wall all the time because I was dealing with HR issues and I got to do fun things like, building culture and all of that. But still, my desire was to be out there on the front lines, working with clients, being strategic, business development. That's how I'm wired.
Oh, definitely. Before I did want to ask you about your book and stuff, but you just mentioned culture, right? And I think that's a big one now, especially with social media. What is a company culture, and how do you build company culture? So to you, what is culture, and how do you create culture within a company?
Yeah, I think culture, you want to be very intentional, but ultimately, what happens on a day-to-day basis defaults into the culture, right? So it's not, you can have the best intentions, but it's just got to be repetitive, and it's got to be, it starts at the top, all of your key leaders and, the key influencers, not even by title, but just the key influencers in the organization. They're going to set the culture, good or bad. And so I admire the heck out of leaders that have built a strong culture, because it is not easy. It's something you have to fight for day in, day out. But I think culture is a mindset. It's tangible and intangible at the same time. And I think it's easy to default into, culture. I looked at myself with my experience, my leadership team back in the day. I empowered them to go out and build culture. We would align, and then it's really, they're the culture bearers out there with their respective teams, and how they treat people, how they acted, what they took as important and not important. I mean, that trickled down big time. So again, huge respect for those that have done it and done it well over a long period of time, because it's not easy.
Well, that's awesome. So diving into your book a little bit, non-food franchising, right? It's been a bestseller. Two-part question, what motivated you to write it? And secondly, what makes non-food franchising particularly attractive as an opportunity to, compared to basically a traditional food-based franchise?
Yeah, we've got nothing against the food guys. We love them. We support them. We need them. It's just my humble belief that there are easier ways to make money in a lot of cases. Businesses that may require less capital, fewer employees, less operating hours, higher margins oftentimes, maybe less susceptible to consumer whims. I think of like frozen yogurt. Froyo was big till it wasn't, right? So I don't like trendy. I like non-sexy, understandable, cash flowing businesses. Everything from dumpsters and gutters to concepts in health and wellness, to youth soccer, to in-home senior care, to pet grooming, things that people will always spend on regardless of the economy, that aren't going to go out of style. So I'd say if you're putting forward that much money, I just think there are opportunities that could yield a better investment than food. But no, as far as writing the book, again, when I say the F word, franchise, people think fast food oftentimes. Is just what I found. And so, being contrarian with the title of non-food franchising has definitely gotten people's attention. And, just love unpacking in about 90 pages, content rich, pack it in, make it an easy read. But what I found is it really helps people understand franchising better and fill in the gaps in their understanding and get a flavor for what's going on in the environment today and how it works. What does it take financially to get into a franchise? How do you find the right franchise? How do you understand the FDD, the franchise disclosure document? So again, just fills in a lot of gaps. And what I found is most of our clients have read the book by the time we get on the phone. So we're just able to have much more advanced conversations.
No, that's so awesome. And I think that is true, because when I mentioned that, we have a franchise, people immediately like, okay, well, what's the restaurant, or what's, they think, because the restaurant industry is so big, and, McDonald's and all the fast food ones have been around for, decades, that I think that's where people just gravitate towards. But I have met over, the years, you said dumpsters. I actually met someone that had a dumpster cleaning franchise, which was crazy to me. I was like, I didn't even know that was a business, and they're actually crushing it. I met someone that has a dog. He's the founder of Tip Top Dog Training. I was like, how did you franchise dog training? And he was like, you'd be surprised. And they're crushing it as well. So, there's so many non-food franchises that aren't, don't come first to mind. So I think that's so cool that you've taken that spin and really wanted to, focus in on showing people that it's not just about the restaurants and fast food or anything like that. What do you think are the biggest misconceptions that people may have about franchising, and how do you often address them with your clients?
Yeah, a lot of times people think it's incredibly rigid, which it can be in some systems. But what I found is most franchisors allow you some flexibility to be innovative and try new things, as long as you're not hurting the brand. I think that oftentimes people think, oh gosh, I'm making a franchisor rich because I'm paying these royalty streams back to them. And, the fact is, the better you do, the better they do. So with a good franchisor, there's going to be an alignment there, right, of support. But oftentimes what I found is the royalties you're paying back to the franchisor are things that you would be paying for anyway if you just went out and started a business. So oftentimes, it's kind of one and the same. And again, you're paying for shortcuts to success rather than you're not having to start over, and maybe you have bulk buying, supply chain capabilities, whether it be for services or goods. So, as you explore opportunities, you want to be asking those questions. What value am I getting? Because this well. I mean, there's 3,500 franchise systems in the US. They're not all created equal. Just like every industry, you've got good players, really strong players. You've got those that you don't want to be aligned with. That's where we come in, and it's entirely free to work with us. I mean, we take clients through the process. We simply get a referral fee from the brand. None of that's passed on to our clients. So it's a nice, clean model, nice and free. But that's where we come in to help our clients try to identify the right opportunities that fit their profile, but also behind the curtains, have a good team behind them.
No, yeah, I think that is right. And actually, I was just talking to someone the other day about franchising and stuff, and it wasn't someone that was coming into our franchise system. It was actually a podcast, and they were talking the same thing that you just said, that people are worried about paying for royalties and so forth. And my explanation about it was, look, even if you start your own business, right? You don't have that royalty. So in your head, you think you're saving money by doing it that way. I can tell you that with our business, we probably spent more on coaches, advisors, network systems, all these things that we would have paid way less in a royalty just to have that system done for us, right? So there's an A or a B. There's two sides of the coin. Are you going to go, one, find the coaches and advisors and stuff to help you, and then you have to worry about, am I hiring a good coach or not a good coach, right? That can help me with my business. Maybe I don't have a proven track record with my industry, or you're coming on to someone that's giving you the blueprint and helping you with the system that they know, right? So there's two sides of that coin. And going into like the financials and the investment and stuff that you've mentioned a few times, franchises can be lucrative, right? But they can also require that upfront investment. So what are some of the key financial factors that someone should consider when evaluating a franchise?
First off, I'd say if your net worth isn't yet 150,000, then it's probably, not time to pull the trigger just yet. So I'd say most of our clients, that would be the minimum. And certainly clients are well north of that. But from an investment range, it's when you look at the all-in investment, meaning the franchise fee, the startup cost, and several months of working capital all in, oftentimes you're in the range of, call it 150,000 to 300,000. Certainly there's some that are well north of that. I just had clients buy handful of trampoline parks at $3 million a pop, but most people are kind of in that 150 to 300, 400,000 range. Some people will use cash to fund it. Most will put in maybe 50 or 60,000 in cash plus an SBA loan. Banks obviously prefer lending to franchises, right? So that's very common, SBA loans. Most of our clients will use those. Some people will use an old retirement plan like a 401k or IRA, roll those funds over, set up a C corporation, the business where the retirement plan owns it. And I can get into more detail on that. But there are multiple ways, certainly HELOCs or other ways as well to get into franchising. So, with the franchise, as far as, what you can make in it, it varies. I mean, I hate to put any numbers out there, but, what I remind people of is the trifecta. You're building cash flow. You're building an asset that should have exit value down the road, if you build it halfway decent. And then third, you're also getting tax benefits that you wouldn't as a W-2 employee. The tax code was written in favor of business owners. There's a lot of things you can do, that again, when you compare what you're making as a franchise owner versus as a W-2 corporate employee, it's not apples to apples because of the tax advantages that you get.
Yeah, no, I think that's a huge thing that people don't really take into consideration. I remember before the gym and before, the franchise and everything that we had launched, I had a personal training company, right? I was a solopreneur, and one of my best friends worked at Enterprise, and he was, higher up there, area manager, and both of us, making, roughly 100 to 150K, right? And then I said, but my 150K is more. And he was like, that doesn't even make sense. I was like, it doesn't make sense to you, but you get taxed on your money before you get it. I get taxed on my money that's left over. And then he was like, he thought about it. He's like, oh, that's messed up. And I was like, well, that's the risk, right? You got to, there's benefits to it, but there's also a lot more risk to it, So can you, I know like the numbers is hard, right? Because I mean, that's the one thing, I don't know how the conversations you've had, right? But people that want to start a franchise often will be like, how much money am I going to make? Right. And I tell them, I can't give you that number, because if I give you that number, I'm required to I'm upheld to that number, right? Every location is different, but I can give you basically price points of like what we sell things for and ranges. You can kind of put the numbers and out together. So when someone comes to you and they're looking for a franchise and they ask, but how much am I going to make? What is your explanation or talk through process with them?
Yeah, I would say certainly the franchise systems that we introduce you to, I want them to be the ones on record as far as making earnings claims of what you can make. The nice thing about franchising is every franchise system is regulated by the Federal Trade Commission. They've got an FDD, a franchise disclosure document that lays out just a lot of historical information and information about the opportunity that you're evaluating. They come out with a new one every year. In there, there's what's called the Item 19, which is where they lay out their financial representations. Most franchise systems will have an Item 19 where they show some historical results. Now, it may just be for their corporate location because it's been in the business the longest, or it may be their average across all franchisees, if they've been in business, for a couple of years. So they'll lay it out different ways, but the goal of the Item 19 is to give you some financial information to help you decide if, again, the franchisor is not held to that, but it gives you an idea of what others have done in that system. And some will provide excruciating details, some won't. But that's one point. Another one, when you're looking at franchises, you get to talk to other franchisees within their system through what we call the validation process. And that's another area where the franchisees can open up their books and share as much as they want. So you kind of get these multiple data points to help put together a pro forma, at least in your mind, if not on paper, of what that opportunity presents.
No, yeah, I think that's huge. And I think that is one thing that I try to explain to people is that I could tell you my numbers, and it's because I'm based out in California, right? And so we're that registration state. And there was some curveballs, and this is what I was talking about, being an entrepreneur and starting something. You don't know what you don't know, right? And so we registered our FDD. We got approved at the end of the year. I didn't know you had to register every single year. So immediately we got hit with the re-registration and that whole process. And I was like, well, that was something I wish someone would have told me. I would have waited a couple more months and just registered the first time, But like for us, we have to put our numbers and stuff in that and trying to explain that, look, these are our numbers. Like there's a level of transparency with us, right? I want to tell you everything I can, but I don't want you to be sold on something. I want you to want to do this because it makes sense for you, right? And that's what it kind of sounds like when you're talking to, your clients. It's like you're not trying to move them into something that you think is best fit for them, but based off all the answers that they're telling you, an industry that's aligned with them, a company that would be aligned with them, a franchise or system that would be aligned with them, and even a team that's really aligned with them. Would I be right in saying that?
Yeah. And what I found is, years ago, I tried to guess. Now I no longer guess. I want to bring opportunities that share the characteristics that you told me about, that I'm also seeing with a lot of momentum out there in the market that are resonating with other clients of ours that have similar backgrounds. There's a little bit of science to this, right? And, not every opportunity is going to be available in your market. That's probably our biggest, things are moving fast in good markets. That's our biggest challenge. But I like to present clients with 10, 12 opportunities that if I'm in your shoes, here's a really interesting assortment that I would be interested in evaluating. And so oftentimes they end up purchasing something that was in an industry that was never even on their radar. All the time. It just happens over and over. I'd say 80 to 90% of the time they purchase something in a different industry than what they had ever previously thought about. And so it's so much fun for me to see that magic happen and for it to come together when they have that aha moment. They look at their spouse and say, I never thought about that, but our community does need that. And gosh, I love that niche and I can leverage this skill set from my background in the business. And so it is neat. And again, I try to present clients in most cases with opportunities from home and property services to health and wellness to kids, pets, seniors, maybe automotive, different categories than what they had in mind coming in. But at the end of the day, you start looking at things differently when you're looking through the eyes of a potential owner.
No, that's awesome. And so, you've talked about, franchises being able to be around passively or semi-passively and being investments in the same. What type of franchise systems are best suited for that model, in your opinion?
Yeah. And I want to be very careful how I say this because, there really aren't passive opportunities out there. There's going to be some degree of involvement. Otherwise, everybody would be a business owner, right? And so franchises will call it semi-absentee, semi-passive. Some call it an executive model. I think semi-involved is a better term because, again, your involvement is going to come down to how strong of an operator you have, a general manager running that day-to-day, and how strong is the franchisor on the sideline. The beauty is that over time, that franchisor, you've got two good players here. They can support that manager and be the go-to and carry some of that daily support water for you, allowing you to keep your day job or do other things. But I just never want to sugarcoat it. There's still going to be some involvement, especially early on, especially until you have that right general manager in place. But what I found is, even we have a lot of doctors as clients, they kind of like that idea. Some have more bandwidth than others, but they like the idea of stretching their intellectual muscle, trying out a whole new industry, playing a role they've never played before. And so, I think a client of ours in Connecticut recently is a doctor that bought, a restoration business, water mitigation, mold remediation. Of course, that's not what he came to me for, right? But once he understood, the financials and the potential behind it, he got excited. And again, countless examples of different backgrounds getting involved in different industries.
No, that's awesome. So, you just mentioned that a lot of your clients are doctors, or you have a handful of doctor clients, right? And then you mentioned that, some people do want that semi-absentee or semi-involved role. And I do like the term that you use, semi-involved, because I also align with the thought process that nothing is straight passive, right? Unless you're just in the stock market, because it is what it is. But you still have to touch base with your managers. You still have to touch base with your team, right? And there's still some level of work that you have to do. It might be an hour a week. It might be 10 hours a week. That can change and vary depending on the business. But how can someone, or how do people that you work with keep a full-time job and maybe even some other commitments and really manage that franchise successfully?
Yeah, it all comes down to the general manager. If you've got a strong general manager that is a go-getter, self-starter, and you've incentivized them well, and you have a strong franchisor on the sideline, it's very, very doable. If that manager is not good and you have to replace them, you're going to find yourself with headaches and leaning in, right? Until you have a good manager. So that really is what it comes down to. It's who's carrying the water on a day-to-day basis for the business. And, aligning to what role you want to play. Do you want to get involved in the community and be out there and get involved in the Chamber of Commerce or sponsor the Little League baseball team as a kind of a ground roots type thing? I do think that some retail businesses maybe could be a little less involved. Those are more transaction oriented than sales oriented. Sometimes, I've kind of evolved in my thinking over time. I think a retail customer facing business could be a little more hands off. I've got a business down in South Florida that does custom orthotics, like insoles for shoes, and we sell some footwear as well. But that's one where the franchisor is incredibly supportive and actually does the hiring, which is very rare, but they actually do the hiring. And I've been very hands off with that myself, very little time in the business. But I'd say most opportunities out there require more involvement than what I put into that one.
No, that's awesome. That's actually really interesting that they took that approach, right? So choosing the right franchise, right? What are maybe some of the most important criteria that you would recommend for an individual that is considering franchising? And then also maybe some examples of some emerging trends that are in the non-food franchising that maybe those people should be paying attention to.
Yeah, I'd say, when you're looking at businesses, obviously you're looking at competitive advantages. You're looking at, the financial model, how much meat's on the bone. You're looking at the history. You're looking at what are current owners and their system saying about their experience. But the one that I probably put the most emphasis on is the leadership team. I want to see not only industry experience, but also franchise experience. Maybe that's imported. They brought it onto the team, but I just think franchising is a different animal. So, everything comes down to people, right? So, the challenge is if you just start Googling around, you're going to see a lot of noise out there. Of course, every brand's putting their best foot forward with their marketing messages. Even if you see a top 100 list or top 50 franchise list, the publications behind those, typically companies are paying to be on that list. It's a PR move. So you can't really put a lot of stock in those. So that's where, again, our service is entirely free and we love helping guide clients through some of that noise. Again, we have a lot of relationships, a lot of experience out there, and we get to see firsthand, kind of what's resonating and why is it resonating. And, kind of in the same way franchising shortens the success loop on business ownership, we shorten that on the exploration process and try to tee our candidates up for success.
Oh, that's awesome. And then, before I give you the final question that I know I didn't give you any preface on because I like the authentic answer and whatever first comes to mind, but to kind of wrap up the whole business side of things, right? What are some of the challenges that both franchising and starting from scratch share, and how does franchising help mitigate some of that?
Yeah. Again, if everything was easy, everybody would be a business owner, right? But I'd say, you're still dealing with people. You're still dealing with customers. You're still, whether it be a startup or franchise, there's still got to be market demand for it. You've got to be able to compete against the competition. There's so many different pieces that go into it. I do think franchising, because you start from day one with a checklist of here's what you need to execute on to be successful, as these others have done in other markets. It just gives you, you find yourself making less mistakes. You find yourself not running and spending as much money on marketing, unoptimized marketing, right? Because it's been optimized. They know what works at different stages of business when they introduce it to a market. I love the idea of being in business for yourself, but not by yourself. You've got the franchisor and that community around you. So again, I think there's a lot of intangibles as well as the tangible side of it. Oftentimes when people think franchising, they think, oh yeah, it's a household name, brand. The thing is, there are industries out there, I think in the property services arena, where it could be a $50 billion industry, but no one knows the name of an insulation company or, a gutter company, right? But it's all those other things that the franchisor provides outside of the name that are more important than the name. Name means so much in hotels, food, stuff like that, right? But some of these other industries, it doesn't matter. I think once people start waking up to franchising, I have so many clients that say, hey, we've been looking for an existing business to buy, ETA, that's kind of a hot topic out there. Most of them come to me after 2 or 3 years and say, all right, can't find what we're looking for. We've been outbid. We put LOIs on. The due diligence hasn't shaken out. Reason after reason. Now we're ready to look at franchises. And then they end up going the franchise route. So, there can be some existing businesses that make sense to buy, but most of them, what I found is there's a reason why they're being sold. And you're stepping in, there's risk to that because, whenever you have a change in ownership, you may lose key employees or key clients. And so I think being able to start with an existing proven business model, but new to the market where you can put your thumbprints on it from day one, makes a lot of sense for a lot of people.
Oh yeah, that's so true. So the question I want to ask you that I ask everyone is, right, I will say it is not a tombstone, right? It is Jon's legacy wall, right? And on this legacy wall, you get to leave one message, right? For the up and coming generations, the up and coming entrepreneurs, whatever the message may be that resonates deepest with you. What would that message be?
Yeah. I asked my grandfather for a similar question shortly before he passed away. And he pointed to Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 in the Bible, about trusting in God. And, for me, that's at the core of who I strive to be and what I strive to leave behind as a legacy to my kids and to others is, it's not about me. There's a higher power and, there's more to life. And, my belief is there's a life after this. So, I would point to God and take the attention off of me.
That's awesome. Well, where can people connect with you? And, if you want to say the link of your book again, I'll definitely put that in the show notes, but where can people connect with you on social media or learn more what you have going on at Fran Bridging?
Absolutely. Very active on LinkedIn. That's probably our most popular platform, but come out to our website, franbridgeconsulting.com, FRAN bridgeconsulting.com. And, share your email address. We'll add you to our newsletter list. It comes out about once or twice a month. And then, we'll send you a copy of our book as well, downloadable version, audio or PDF, whichever you prefer. And if you'd like to take the next step, just reply back to that and let us know. And, let's book a call and chat further. So happy to help. Entirely free, again, to work with us. And we'd love to share a copy of the book too as a first step.
Well, Jon, thank you so much for taking the time to come on today and drop all this knowledge. And I know you guys have gotten some value. So if you're listening, so please make sure you guys share this with a friend, especially that's, maybe thinking about getting into business or starting a business. They don't really know maybe what exactly they want to do. Share this with them. They can connect with Jon. They can get some answers and some guidance. And like you said, it's free. It doesn't hurt them, but you're hurting them by not sharing this show with them. So leave us that 5-star review. And Jon, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks, Devin. Enjoyed it.
No negative vibes, only positive thoughts. Just in the game of life, mindset causes shots. Got my mind on the prize, I can't be distracted. I stay on my grind, no time to be slacking. I hustle harder, I go against the current, 'cause I know I'm the